Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going to go over user flows and wireframes. As I said last time, along with the PRD, I usually like to include these in new features and new applications. But once we get to the end of this demo, we're going to see if this step is even worth it. And it's really dependent on the product you're working on, the organization you're working at, and what other tools or processes are in place. So let's jump right in. Today, we're going to cover a few common wireframing tools, and we're just going to talk briefly about them so that you're aware of which ones are out there. We're going to go over a Miro wireframe AI demo because they have integrated AI into their product, and they do have some good jumping off points. And then we're going to discuss are identifying the user flows and wireframes upfront worth it? I don't know. So let's jump right in. Let's do a quick demo, and then I will show you more of a finished product. And then we'll talk about whether or not you actually need to do this for your product. What are some of the most common tools? And I would definitely say that Figma is the gold standard for design, at least in the United States. Most teams I've worked with in the last 5 to 10 years have used Figma. It is way more than just wireframing. So this is heavy duty, and you are going to have most of the tools you need available if you use Figma. Highly recommend it if your team's already using it, if you're a designer, if you have everything in your visuals and your flows, that's probably the best tool to use. A lot of organizations use Balsamiq, and Balsamiq does really well on low fidelity wireframes and also getting them quickly out the door. That is also super common on many teams still. I am not familiar with what they have for AI, so we are going to not do a demo today of Balsamiq, but instead we're going to go to this third option, which is Miro. And I have used Miro for many years. It is essentially a whiteboarding tool that actually does more than just whiteboarding. It will do the prototyping flows. It is not as high powered as Figma, but it does have other capabilities within it. For example, you can define your product roadmaps. You can do tasking. You can do all sorts of presentations that will then translate into Google Slides or PowerPoint. So Miro has a very diverse set of tools, and they have AI within their product. I'm going to show you an example of that today. The last option, a whiteboard. I have a whiteboard right in my office. You can use a whiteboard and a marker. You can use pen and paper. Really, anything you want to do to get that out the door is helpful for the designers and the engineers. And I am not partial to any specific standard. If you're a designer, of course, you're going to have a different opinion, but I prefer fast action and fast getting out requirements above, pixel perfect. So what we're going to jump into now is an actual demo using Miro. I'm going to pull up a brand new blank canvas. Okay, so you'll see Miro is a whiteboard, and I currently have nothing available in here. And I'm going to just go ahead and click on their little AI icon. This is pretty common across all platforms at this point. And we're going to do a prototype because I want Yield Cover to have a login system, which is very common, and it's pretty easy for me to describe textually, like in words, verbally. But I would like to have more of this branded. And then from the login screen, I can then decide on the next screens in the flow for my product called Yield Cover. So what I'm going to do is a very simple demo, and I'm going to show you some more complexities of Miro. And then I'm going to finish it off because you'll probably see that it's not going to exactly pull in my branding or how I want this to look on the first try. And this is super common with AI tools. So let's get started and see where you can get in just a few minutes. And then I will finish it off and show you the rest of the prototype I developed. All right, we're going to look at the create with AI here. We have a document, image, diagram, or a prototype. I'm going to choose prototype. I would like to start with a text prompt. So I can use a screenshot. So if I have an existing system or something I want to look at, I can use a screenshot, and I have used this tool to take styles and colors from other applications. We're not going to do that today, but I might do that in a future lesson. The text prompt, what we want, yield cover needs to be very mobile accessible. So we're going to just go ahead and start with mobile. We want a prototype of a multi-screen flow. Okay. I want the whole login flow. And then after the point of logging in, then I could start to design my custom screens for my application. All right, so now it tells me to describe what I'd like in a prototype in a few words, any specific functionality. Now, what I have done is I went to ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT to give me the prompt for a login, okay? And this is what ChatGPT gave me. So design an application authorization with sign-up options, a login screen, password reset flow, mobile first layout, use my brands, fonts, and colors, and keep it minimalist and fast loading. Now, I got this prompt from ChatGPT. I will share it in the show notes. I just asked ChatGPT to generate the prompt for me to feed into Miro. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it over into here. Now, this is more than a few lines. We'll do future demos with a few lines, but you get the idea of the sign-up flow. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And now Miro is going to develop this whole prototype for me. Now, why did I go down this route? Let's pause for a second because we're going to get more into the is it worth it? But why did I go down this route? I went down this route because I needed a prototype quickly to show to some potential customers. And I did not yet have any code out there or anything to deploy to show them. And I also was unclear what platform I was going to use for any of that. I'm still not clear on the final platform. So this is a really good example of something that is very clickable and demoable in a very short period of time. You should see AI come back here within minutes. All right. What I did have to do was I actually had to add a couple of line items here to instruct Miro to actually add in the Google authentication and the Apple authentication because that is what I wanted to show in the flow. Now, it's going to ask me if I want to apply this new flow, and I'm going to go ahead and apply it so that we can click through the prototype. But I want you to notice a few things that AI has neglected and a few things that are a little wonky. So number one, it did not use my colors or my theme. I don't even think it used my font for any of this. If I go ahead and I look in here, my colors are actually defined. My brand colors are actually defined. And this blue is nowhere in there. I don't have any blue of that color. Okay, a couple of other things to note is while it did do a much better job with this authentication flow, I don't think it's complete. Let's just put it that way by looking at it. So I would have to add some extra screens in here for sure. For example, I don't see Google in here at all, but that's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. Let's do a couple of different things. Number one, we're going to click through the prototype. So let's go ahead. We could click on any screen here. Just move our screen over and we can hit preview. And this is so cool because we can show this to customers immediately. I could put in fake information and I could hit create account. Oh, create account doesn't work. Okay, well, that's interesting, but I digress. These are things we need to fix. So let's hit continue with Apple. And now it's going to tell me to continue with my Apple ID. And I should be able to, I don't know, it takes me to the welcome back. I would anticipate it taking me to the application. Let's see if the forget password works. Nope. Let's see if the sign up works. Nope. Just Google and Apple are the only two things that work. So this is a little bit incomplete. So what we can do now, though, is we can go back and we can say, well, a couple of things we can do. So number one, we can take this, we could take this screen and we can, well, let's just duplicate it. Okay. And unfortunately, Miro can be a little finicky, but we can do this ourselves, and we can just say, we could just change this and say homepage. All right. So it's very easy to come in here and to kind of do the work yourself, right? So you could just take all this information and you could say, once I hit continue with Apple, take me to this next page, which is the homepage. All right. So this is very easy to add to your wireframes. Now, what we would like to do is we would like to create additional screens based off of the style of one of these screens. Let's go ahead and click on one that has, this is not my logo, which I would need to replace it, but let's go ahead and click on this one, and we're going to create the first screen in the actual application. And what I'm going to do is I click on the entire screen. Then I click the AI prototype over here. And this is the part that's a little bit confusing with Miro and most of these tools. But I'm going to say I would like to do a text prompt for mobile. Again, same thing. And I'm going to do create a prototype of a single screen. I'm going to say, so you could see that I have one object selected because I have that selected. I'm going to say create me a screen for crop year with a year drop down for the user to select and a continue button. All right, and we're going to see what this comes back with. So it should now use my theme, my logo, everything to select a year drop down in the next piece of the prototype. While that's generating, let's talk about this again here. All right, so let's go ahead and just we're going to change this button just so that I can use it in the prototype to say continue. And we're going to run through the prototype again. All right, great. So it did give my logo. It gave my company name, crop year, and a drop down. This is awesome. So we're going to do just a quick demo of logging in with Apple. And then the buttons will then continue to scroll through here. I'm going to just call out a couple of things before we move on. You can select multiple artifacts and just select them all together and then change their color. I just changed it to, let's change it to this dark blue. You could change their font, change it to white. You could do all of that pretty programmatically. And I'll show you a real example here in just a moment after we get done with this flow. So you can see after about, I don't know how long we've been working on this, 5 minutes or so, we actually have a pretty decent flow for an application. Continue with Apple. We made it to the home page. For some reason, my button is gone. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. And then we just added the screen for crop year, and we could go ahead and select any year and then hit continue. I will just continue on in this fashion, iterating and making this prototype. We are back with a completed prototype. Well, I wouldn't say completed, but close. And we're going to start from the beginning and walk through this flow. Now, this took me, I would say, a couple of hours of work to get things like the colors and all of the artifacts that I kind of wanted correct. You definitely don't have to go to that much work. You could have just gone with the initial, which you saw, which was blue, and worked with that. I was working through this and wanted to keep iterating. All right, so we're going to go to yield cover. Again, this is all a prototype in Miro. None of this is working. There's no database. There's nothing behind the scenes, but this is great for showing potential customers. We're going to sign up with Google. We are going to continue with Google. It's going to tell me my account was created successfully. Get started. Welcome to yield cover. Please select your role. I'm going to say that I'm a farmer. And we're going to go through creating our crop insurance estimate. We're going to hit new estimate and the crop year. You saw this screen already created before. We're going to select 2024. We're going to select a farm location of state and county and hit continue. Then we're going to select the commodities that we're interested in generating this estimate for. Again, all of this just generated by AI prototype tool. How many acres do we have? We can fill all this in, although this is not actually it's not functional, it's not saving it anywhere, but it's great for showing customers or potential customers. We select the coverage type, we hit continue, and now it's going to show us the charts, which is really the heart of the application. And again, completely just faked out data, but you could see where this might give them a visual of how it would work in real life. And then we're going to hit continue because they should be selecting their coverage level. My continue button is not functioning. And that's it. So that is our demo for the moment. As you can see, there's 36 screens in this demo. So there are several different flows that we can walk through. But it gives you a pretty good idea of what you can do in minutes to hours with a tool like Miro. You can do it equally as fast with Balsamiq. You can do these things pretty quickly in Figma. It depends on your level of expertise. So is it worth it? Is it worth it to actually use a tool to prototype these days? Because our code generators generate prototypes so fast, is it worth it? Well, there's a lot of considerations. So it's definitely worth it if you're at an enterprise where you need branded artifacts and you need to follow a process and you have documentation of how to develop these prototypes. Absolutely. If you are exploring multiple layouts, it might be more effective to definitely have this in a wireframing tool than to have, dozens of prototypes sitting out there and nobody knows what's what. If you want to have a low fidelity mockup and you want it to be very clearly identified, for example, if your customers think that what I just clicked through is a real application, they're mistaken. So if I want it to be very low fidelity, I should use a tool rather than trying to generate code. If you don't have anywhere to deploy it and you don't have a plan yet, which I do not, the wireframes are much better for walking something through quickly rather than figuring out where your code is going to be and where everything's going to be hosted and how you're going to publish it. So definitely wireframing is worth it in many situations. When is it not worth it? We're doing a totally new 0 to 1 product. I don't know if the time spent here was any better than the time I would spend in Replit or Bolt or V0. If you're designing for yourself and you don't have to get buy-in from anyone else, might not be worth it to go through this. Just plug your PRD into Bolt and you will be able to get a workable product, which is what we're going to show you next. If you can verbally articulate the flow, then the prompts that you feed an AI code generator will work and you will get a prototype from that. You do not necessarily need wireframes. If you want a simple MVP and you need really fast feedback, use something, like I said, Lovable, Bolt, Replit. Any of those tools will give you a very simple MVP and you don't have to wireframe it out first. But if you need to document and you need to be following your own branding, you could see Miro was not very good at branding. So is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. But you're going to see next, we are going to generate a prototype with Bolt, and we are not going to use the wireframes as an input. So I will have these wireframes for future use, for posterity, and for another development effort, but we're going to try it next without actually using the wireframes. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to switch over to Bolt now, and we are actually going to use our PRD markdown that we generated to generate a working prototype, not based off the wireframes we just created, although we will come back and use these again in the future, but to see what the prototyping tools actually come up with for an application without knowing much more visual information. Very excited for next time. Thanks, guys.